Hello, this is Sandra Inman from Mystery Witch School, and today we're going to be talking about runes. What are they and how we use them for divination. And in this video, we're going to be covering a brief history of the runes. We'll cover the meanings of the runes and how to prepare them for casting and interpretation. So many people believe that the runes were created by the Vikings, but they are actually much older than that. According to the archaeological evidence, the runic writing system was invented no later than about the 2nd century current era, which was hundreds of years before the Vikings. Even though the runes were used during the Viking era, they were much later developments. So these runes were more localized versions of the original forms, and they varied from locality to locality. So here is a picture of the Elder Futhark. The runes are sometimes known as the Futhark, which is the pronunciation of the first 6 characters of the alphabet when they're in the conventional order like they are here. Now the Elder Futhark are the oldest of the Futhark. There is another version of the Futhark which is called the Younger Futhark, which was developed much later. And in the Younger Futhark, some of the letters are changed and omitted and added. And you're going to see that there are a lot of different runic alphabets, that they vary in different ways. Some have letters that others are missing, and it can get quite confusing. But today we tend to use the Elder Futhark here, or something similar to this, and you'll see the Elder Futhark most likely in the runes that you'll see in books and what's sold commercially. So it's the Elder Futhark that I'm going to be using today. So the runes were most likely spread from Denmark to the broader Germanic tribes, who were the ancestors of the modern Scandinavians, the Germans, the Dutch, and the English. The word rune comes from the Norse word runa, which translates to secret or to whisper. So some scholars trace it back even further to Proto-European languages. It's just interesting to note that the linguistic roots actually predate the development of the runic alphabet. The earlier versions of runes were most likely used for magic and divination prior to being formed into the alphabetical script that we're familiar with today. The earliest references to divination are from Roman records, and according to Tacitus, people would carve symbols into strips of wood that were cut from the branch of a fruit-bearing tree. And these carved strips were then thrown onto a white cloth and then interpreted. It's most likely that these runes would not have been the exact same runes that we use today, as the description was written before the current system was actually developed. So the runes were used to inscribe spears, shields, stones, and architecture. And they were used for mundane purposes as well as more esoteric use. So they were eventually used for writing in general, and they were carved onto sticks prior to the invention of parchment. As Christianity took over, the use of runes for the magical purposes, though, were banned by the church. Yet they've always remained in the Scandinavian lands and made a comeback to the mainstream Western culture during the Romantic period between the 18th and 19th century current era. So then during the 20th century, they became popular with the New Age and neo-pagan communities. And of course, ever since then, they've become very, very popular. Now, mythologically, the runes were said to have existed since the dawn of time. And it's said that the Norns, the weavers of fate in Norse mythology, carved the runes into the trunk of the tree Yggdrasil, and the runes then moved up through the trunk into the branches and out into the universe. The runes were not available to the gods, however, until Odin discovered them, or he was given the knowledge. Some sources say that the god Frey gave Odin access to the runes. Other sources say that he realized them after his great sacrifice. So in order to obtain the knowledge of the runes, Odin pierced himself with his sword, hung himself upside down from a branch of the great tree Yggdrasil, which overlooked the well of Ud, which was where the gods would hold their council meetings. He stayed there for 9 days, refusing food, water, or any assistance, and then the shapes and the meanings of the runes were then revealed to him in the water of the Oud. So, as you can see, admittance to the knowledge of the runes was not given lightly. And in all myths, you'll find that any knowledge that is sacred or magical requires some kind of sacrifice. These things aren't given freely. There is always a price. The price doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go through the type of sacrifice that Odin went through. The sacrifice in the modern day could simply be your time, resources, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be something nasty. It can just be something that you have to sacrifice. As I said, these days the sacrifice is generally sacrificing our time and taking the time out to learn these things and to dedicate time every day to practicing the craft, for example. Now I'm going to give you a demonstration of how to use the runes and read them. But before I do, I'm going to show you the runes along with keyword meaning so that you can start reading them for yourselves. If you don't already have a set of runes, you can easily make them from painted river stones or stones from the ocean, such as the ones I've got here. Or you can use some blank playing cards even and draw the runes and the keyword on the card. That's a great way to learn to start to read the runes. Be creative with it. If you can't purchase runes, then try to make them yourself. Traditionally, though, they were carved on sticks or wood, so you can still use stones or card in the modern age. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to stick totally to tradition to be able to read the runes. So let's start with the keywords and what the runes basically mean. So the first one is fihu, and it means livestock. You'll find a lot of the runes have meanings that are related to agricultural communities, because this is what these people were. The Germanic tribes were agricultural for about 2,000 years before current era, so it really was about living off the land. So fihu, or I pronounce it Fio. I do pronounce the runes slightly differently to how they're typically pronounced or written. You'll find that they're written in various different spellings, so it can get confusing. It's for wealth, abundance, and success. A very, very positive rune. So it's always a good rune to get. The next one is or Uraz, which is the auroch. Now the auroch is an ox, basically, and it is a very powerful animal. So or Uraz stands for power, strength, and courage. Thuriaz, or thorn, is a thorn. So think of a thorn as a defense for a plant. It's the way that a rose bush defends itself. Conflict. It can also be a rune that comes up if there's any decisions to be made or decisions have been made. And Suz is Odin's rune. So it's the rune of communication, advice, and knowledge. Rado is a chariot. So if you think of a chariot being a vehicle that you travel in, it has all of those connections: travel, messages, and production. Kanaz is fire. So fire is vital, so you have vitality, creativity, guidance. Then you've got Gebu, or Gifu, as I've been taught to say it. It means gift, and gift is generosity, of course, and it's about giving and receiving gifts, and it's also a rune that could relate to relationships as well. Next we have Wunyo, or Win, as I was taught to pronounce it, and it means joy. So obviously it stands for joy, happiness, and success. Next up is Hagalaz, which is hail. So think of hail being hard, it's an obstacle. It can also symbolize danger, delays. Often the delays are, because it's to do with hail and weather, the delays are outside our control. Northhiz, or Ned, is the word actually means need. So think of what being needy or having a need for something. It's a restriction. It can also symbolize conflict and also being cautious. So it's a warning rune, and often it's a rune that a lot of people don't like to get when it comes up in a reading. Isa is ice. So this is another rune that is about delays or temporary standstills, stalemates, or cooling off. Yara means year. So it's all about cycles, change, harvests, what the sort of things that you associate with a yearly cycle. Iwas is the yew tree. So the yew tree is a very sacred tree in Norse mythology, and it symbolizes protection, resilience, and balance. Then we've got Perthro, or Perth as I call it. It's a dice cup. So think of a dice cup as a game of chance, mystery, and secrets. Algis is an elk, and you can see the shape. It looks a bit like elk horns. It is a rune of protection, of defense, and also of good luck. Sawillow is the sun. So the sun is health, truth, victory. Very, very positive things associated with Sawillow. Tiwaz, or Tyr, named after the god Tyr, means victory, leadership, and logic. Burkana is the birch tree. So it is a symbol of fertility, healing, and new beginnings. Now we have Ewaz, which means the horse, and it's all about travel because horses are associated with travel, especially in those days. So think of travel, progress, and the trust. It's about horses trusting the rider and rider trusting the horse to have a good relationship between horse and rider. So horses are often associated with trust as well, hence so is Ewaz. The next one is Manaz, which stands for humanity. It is all about cooperation, working with other people. It's about the self, so your own relationship with yourself, and also about receiving and giving help to other people. Laguz is a lagoon. It's related to water. So that's anything watery. It symbolizes intuition, journeys across water, renewal, cleansing, anything associated with water, Laguz will have that energy. Ingus is a seed. So seeds are about growth, home, and bounty. Very much about things that are earth and stable. Othala is inheritance. So this is obviously inheritance itself, ancestry, and property. And Dargez is the dawn, a very beautiful rune for new awakenings, illumination, and new beginnings. And finally, Weird, which is the blank rune or the unknown rune. This has a little bit of contention about it. Some people don't include Weird. When I was learning the runes originally back in my coven days, back in the 1990s, we did use Weird. And when it came up, it symbolized the unknown. So basically the runes were saying, this is not information we can either give you right now, or it's not information that has actually got an outcome just yet because there's so many other factors involved. So it's hidden. It also means going within. When this rune comes up, it just simply may be that your own intuition is really going to be your guide, and the rune is really saying you actually already know what the answer to the question is, so we don't need to tell you. But like I said, it's not necessarily a rune that people include in their runes anymore. So what I'm going to do next is take you through the process of cleansing your runes and then using them for divination. So here are my runes, and they're just made from stones that I found on a beach about 30 years ago. And I painted them with acrylic paint and with the black and white, just acrylic paint. It is traditional to have red. At the time when I first made my runes, I didn't know that. It doesn't really matter anyway. You'll find that when you are buying them, if you decide to buy them and not make them, you're going to have them in different colors anyway. It's not so much the colors that are important, it's really the symbols that are important. Having a relationship with the wood adds a little bit, especially if you're working with magic. But if you're doing divination, it's as simple as finding some stones and just painting them. You don't have to go all out into tradition in order to be able to make these things work for you. So once you've got your runes or you've made your runes, it's just a matter then of cleansing them and consecrating them before you use them. And you're also going to need to cleanse them after you've been using them, particularly with other people. You don't necessarily have to cleanse them after every reading with another person, but it is good to at least do it quite regularly so that they're not accumulating any energy that you don't want them to have. There's a couple of different ways you can cleanse them. I'm going to use incense because it's my favorite way of cleansing. You can use salt, so put them in a bowl of salt. You could sprinkle them with salt water. It really depends what they're made of as to how you go about consecrating them. As I said, I like to use the incense. You can do them individually over the incense. So in this case, if you're doing them individually, it gives you the opportunity to focus on the symbol and connect with the symbol again. This one here is the symbol of which is the ox, and it is a symbol of strength and power. And as you put it over the incense, it's as simple as saying, I cleanse and consecrate this rune so that it may be fit to serve me in my work. Remove all malefic and replace with benefic. And then when you feel that the energy has cleansed, pick up your next rune and put that over there. Take your time with the cleansing. It's important to connect with your runes while you're doing it, and cleansing is a good way to connect with them, and it's a good way to still your mind as well. Another way that you can do it is to put them in a bowl and then run the incense around the bowl while the runes are in the bowl and cleanse them that way, saying exactly the same thing. I cleanse and consecrate these runes so that they may be fit to serve me in my work, remove all malefic and replace with benefic. So that's another way that you can do it if you're wanting to do them all together. Still, spend time doing it, because all of the time that you spend doing these sorts of rituals is a way for you to connect, and it's all about connecting. So now that you've cleansed and consecrated your runes, it's now time to play with doing some spreads. So whether you're doing divination for yourself or whether you're doing it for other people, you're going to want to prepare for your divination. For some people, that can be a simple chant to a deity such as Odin. For other people, it can just be some moments of deep breathing. But it's important when you're starting your day, if you're going to be doing divination as a living, or if you're just doing it for yourself, to tune into your intuition, to clear your mind of all of the clutter, so that you can tune into your runes and the symbols of the runes, and also to any guides that you may be working with. So a really simple way of doing this is to just, either if you're sitting on the floor on your backside or if you're sitting on a chair, to just feel whatever part of your body is connected to the ground, connecting to the ground. So just feel that surface and the weight of that earth underneath you. And just focusing on that connection. You can close your eyes and just feel that sense of your body connected to the surface of the floor, the ground, whatever you're on. And just imagine that you do have tree roots going down into the ground. Even if that's going down into a building that has many floors, just to grow those roots right down through those floors and down into the ground. And you can take a few deep breaths as well. A deep breath in with a short hold at the top, and then just letting it out slowly. And then taking another deep breath in, Slight hold at the top, and then breathing out slowly. Taking another deep breath in. Slight pause, and then letting it out slowly. And then just tuning into your body, tuning into your posture, tuning into the space around you. And then focusing on what you're going to do next, which is reading the runes. And you can state a simple request to Odin. I ask for your blessings, Odin, on the reading that I'm about to give. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes, and now it's time to read the runes. If you make your runes yourself, you may want to also make a bag or a box or something to put them in. I made this bag here many years ago. I've written the word runes on the front of it, just in a silver pen, glue pen. I think it was a glitter pen at the time. It doesn't look so glittery now, many years later. And on the back, I've just put down one of my magical names. So that means that I own these runes. I've also cleansed the bag as well. So I'd recommend that whatever you're keeping your runes in, you do exactly the same thing. You cleanse it and you consecrate it over the incense, the same way that we did with the runes themselves, so that everything is cleansed and consecrated and made sacred. You can then spend time decorating it however you want to decorate. Some of the commercial runes that you buy may already come with a bag. So again, it's just a matter of cleansing and consecrating the bag. Now there's a number of different ways you can cast the runes in order to read the runes. So I'm just going to show you a couple of ways before we actually get into doing any readings of what a rune reading would look like. Use it for yourself, or if you're using it for somebody else. It's up to you whether you want to allow somebody else to touch your runes. In many cases, if you're reading particularly professionally, you're probably going to have other people touching your runes. So you may want 2 rune sets, one that you use for other people and one that you use for yourself. If you're going to do a casting that's a little bit more traditional, you'll have the bag, either you will take the bag or the person you're reading for is going to take the bag, and you're going to think of a question. So whatever it is you want the runes to tell you, preferably use an open-ended question. So not something that's a yes or a no. You can use runes to answer yes or no questions, but that's not what we're going to show you today. This is really to get a little bit more detail or a little bit more information about something. So you need to use what's called WH questions, what, when, why, or how, rather than is it or is it not. So I like to, if I'm using my bag, I like to put a little bit of energy into the bag and actually ask the question into the bag. Now, if the person you're reading for is open to doing that and doesn't feel too weird, certainly let them do the same thing, because that just helps infuse the runes with a little bit of your vibration of the question, because everything is about vibration. And our words are really quite potent and quite important. So if you direct your question down into the bag with the runes, whatever the question might be, and then you're ready to cast. So if you're casting the runes for yourself, you just simply spread it out. You've got some runes on top of each other, which will happen. So you just want to leave everything as it is. I'm not going to get into complex readings in this video because it's beyond the scope of the video, but the layout is pretty important. As you'll see here, Rad is a fair way out from the other runes, and we've got a whole lot of runes on top of each other. So that's going to influence what the reading is about, in a similar way to the way that when you're reading tea leaves, where the tea leaves fall in relation to the cup influences the meaning. So that can be the same with the runes as well. If you're reading for yourself, if the runes are facing, you'll see some of these runes are facing upright. Some are completely, you can't see them at all because they're totally reversed. And others are upside down. It depends on how you rock with regards to reversed meanings. Some people use reversed meanings, some people don't. And sometimes your runes are going to fall in a position where you can't really tell. It's sort of halfway between being reversed or in the upright position. So then you sort of got to fool around with that as well. Every rune's meaning, of course, is going to be in relation to the other runes as well. So this type of reading that I would have here is way too complex to begin with. But I wanted to show you ways that things that you can work up to. If you're doing a runic spread like this, the ones that are face down are the ones that aren't involved in the reading. So they're not going to influence the reading at all because they're not being present. Whereas the ones that you can see face up are the ones that you would be reading. If you're reading for somebody else and they've cast the runes, then read it in relation to where they're facing. So that means if somebody else had cast this spread, Ophel here on the top, which is upright to me, would be inverse to them. So it would be a reversed meaning to them. So therefore you would read it as a reversed meaning to them if they were the ones that spread out the runes. But we will do more simple readings. So another way that you can do this is, so I'll just gather the runes back in here, put them in the bag, is to pull out a rune. Now when you're first learning the runes and you're wanting to do like a daily divination, then that's a good one to do. So think of your question, ask it in the bag, then dip your hand in and then just pull out a rune. And then just see which way it ends up. So this one here is Thorn, also related to Thor. So that would be the rune to meditate on that day. And that would be a rune that would be telling you a little bit about maybe something you might need to think about that day or something you may come across that day. Use that as your daily rune. And another way that you can do it for doing divination is to, again, ask the question into the bag or the box or whatever you've got your runes in. And then just stick your hand in and just see how many you pull out. So in this case, we've got, I haven't actually asked a question. So in this case, we've got Thorn again, we've got Nid, and we've got a blank rune in between. So then you can do a reading with these runes for the day. You might pull out 3 runes, 2 runes, 4 runes, 5 runes, and then you just lay them out and read them that way. With 3 runes, often people will read the past, the present, and the future. I don't particularly find those readings that helpful. I like to just read them together and see if they can give me an overall feel of a situation. I haven't asked a question that time, so it may not make sense. So I will show you a reading that I did do for somebody. It was just a quick little reading for a friend, and show you how the runes came out and how I interpreted them. So before we move on, I just wanted to say a little bit about reversed meanings. Some people do reversed meanings. So that means the rune is upside down. So for example, Rad here is upright. If it was like this, it would be reversed or upside down. What the reversals generally mean is a blockage to the energy of the rune in its upright meaning. So when you go through the meanings of the runes, think of the reversals as blockages to those. So they're blockages, they're not necessarily all bad. It just means that the energy of the runes or the meaning of the rune is blocked. So start off thinking about it that way. So the runes that I pulled in this particular reading, the reading was about a book. So it was somebody who was wanting to write a book and just wanted to know whether it was a good idea to write this particular book or not, and what writing this book might bring to them. So I just got the person to stick their hand in, ask the question into the bag, stick their hand in and just scoop up however many runes they scooped up, and these were the runes that were scooped up. Now, you'll see here we've got day egg, which is the dawn. We've got here ing or ingu's seed, and this one here came out basically blank. So this one is not relevant. Even though it was pulled, it's not really as relevant as these two ones are here. So because I like to do 3 rune readings or runes together and just look at how they influence each other, rather than going, well, this was the past and this is the present and this is the future. When it's just 2 runes together like this, it's very easy to sort of say to the person, well, it looks like, since they asked the question about what the outcome would be about writing this book, the outcome looks pretty good, because we've got Daeg here, or Dagaz, which is dawn, new beginnings. So it's the beginning of something. Of course, it's the beginning of writing a book, but it could also be the beginning of a new career, or who knows where the book could take the person. So it's definitely going to create some sort of new beginning and some sort of, it's going to take that person somewhere. It's definitely a rune of get to it. Whatever the question is, this rune says go for it, get started as soon as you can, because it's going to bring some sort of new awakening or something very, very new and very, very positive doing it. And when it's with ing or ingus, it means that a lot of growth can come from this new beginning, and that there is going to be growth from this book, and some kind of bounty is going to come from this book. So it's a really good outcome, that this isn't just some book that is probably just going to sit on Amazon and nobody's going to buy or read, like a lot of self-published people have. This book is actually going to lead to something. It's going to bring something to the author. Not sure what that is. The runes can't say specifically what that is, but what they are saying is that this is a really good idea. Get onto it straight away. It's something that's going to bring something new into your life path. It's going to grow into something that has the potential to be quite positive and quite bountiful. So it could even bring in some extra income, or it could just simply be that it promotes that person in their career. There's so many things a book could do. Often books don't bring in much in the way of money. They're not big money spinners, unless you write a bestseller that is very, very popular and it's fiction. Generally, books are more there to build people's awareness that you exist, and to show people, so that it gives you more credibility about whatever it is that your career is, or whatever it is to write about. And that's what I feel that these runes are saying. The fact that this rune here isn't showing itself means that you could read that it also is the blank rune in this particular case, because it was pulled from, it wasn't part of the overall spread, it was pulled. So it was actually pulled from the bag, but it didn't actually reveal anything. So you could say that it is saying that the future is unknown, and it's up to the person how this progresses. But at this stage, it looks like it's a really, really good idea to go ahead and write that book, because it is going to bring in some very, very positive things. So when you first get your runes and you're learning to read, just read like this. Just use a couple of runes for your reading. Don't try to do a casting where all of the runes are out there, and then you've got to figure out what each rune means and how it connects to each other and why is that one away from that one. It's too complicated. Just these simple readings can be enough information for you to get going on something you may be hesitating on, or to help you solve a problem, or to just help you figure out what you're going to do that day. These simple readings are just as powerful as doing a big full spread. So enjoy your runes, have fun with that. And if you want to know more about me, you can find me on YouTube at Mystical Witch School. You can also find me on Facebook at Mystery Witch School, and you can also find me on my website, which is mysterywitchschool.com. I run courses in Wicca to help teach people how to connect to their Wiccan practice, to connect to themselves and to nature and to the deities as part of a 12-month course, which is online. And we also have live contact with that course as well. We get together online as an online community twice a month with new moons and full moons, as well as Q&A sessions during that time. So it's a real global community of Wiccans and witches who are just wanting to connect to their spirituality and have it enhance their lives and just help them basically navigate through life in a way that is very sacred. So those details are there for you. So enjoy your runes. I'm Sandra, and yeah, have an awesome time being a rune caster.